Hello, this is Dennis Landy. It is October 3rd, 2024, and I'm here to follow up on our previous video on ComponentPen with a new feature, which is ChatGPT Support for explaining the Razor code generated by CodePen. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and put this on this side, and I'm going to go ahead and run our project here. And as usual, I don't have a menu for this because I want to see the whole component. There it is. Okay, so that should look familiar to you from last time. Let's go ahead and reproduce our steps from last time here. Here's our golden rocket, my favorite little test harness here. And I'm going to go ahead and put the HTML in here. I'm going to go ahead and put the CSS in the CSS tab and hit update preview, and there we have it. And it's a kind of faithful reproduction. One thing that we need to look at here is, well, in the CodePen version, we're manipulating the body tag, which is not great. So over here, we've got the background actually impacting the background of our web page. That's not ideal. So I have a different version of Golden Rocket. I'm going to load that from my browser storage, and now you see that the black background only applies to the component surface and doesn't bleed outside of it. Great. So basically, we've just taken this background property here, taken it out of the body, and put it in this container, which I added to the HTML markup here. I added a container class, and that's how that works. All right. So that's just a quick recap, if you will, of ComponentPen. Oh, well, I should mention CodePen, is HTML and CSS aware. It's not Blazor component aware, right? ComponentPen is. How can we demonstrate that? Let's add we know we have a counter component in here. We have a fancy counter component. Counter components. Like so. And if we go ahead, there we go. Update preview. So now it's demonstrating that I can mix HTML, CSS are bringing in from the outside world. I'm mixing that with the components I already have in my solution. All right. Now let's get on to the main event here, which is basically we've got our source code generated here. This is an actual Blazor component. But now we have an explanation tag here. This is new. All right. So I'll demonstrate how getting the ChatGPT key works in here. But for now, let's just go ahead and get the explanation from ChatGPT. So it's basically, I'm asking it to explain the CSS in relationship to the HTML that it's impacting, right? And while we're waiting for that, it's going to take about 30 seconds. I can show you over here that I use this component on my own website. I just slightly altered it there. As you'll see, it's basically kind of egg-shaped to kind of simulate speed, if you will. And then I have another very subtle animation happening with my logo here. If you watch it over time, you see it's beginning to glow, has a yellow glow around it, right? That kind of fades in and out. So it's nice to put some animation in your website. You just have to be very careful and try and make it very subtle. Okay. All right. So while I was talking, the explanation did come back, and you'll see here it's going through the various CSS classes and explaining what they are, which is great. Now you'll notice that Golden Rocket Container is mentioned here, but it's not in my CSS over here, but it is in the source here, somewhere up here, right there. And the reason for that is because I automatically add a container around the markup that I'm importing into a Blazor component, just so that that's all contained and the developer can style the overall container, which is almost always necessary. Okay. In our case, I added a container here, right? I just did that in this video to encapsulate the black background that should have only pertained to the component surface here. Okay, so go on with the explanation. We're going to go scene by scene, And it just gives a pretty good explanation of what each of these classes do. And you know, it points out some advanced elements. And I'll point one out here. The before attributes and the after attributes are pretty advanced. A pseudo element is mentioned. Okay, so those are worth exploring. And then down here, we get into the clouds, the various clouds that you're seeing in here. It explains how those work and what they are. And then it talks about the keyframes, which basically simulates, motion. So, it's doing a pretty good job here. And I can see room for improvement, right? So for instance, I would like to generate essentially hooks that I can just basically click on a button and drill down into explanation of what is a CSS pseudo element or what is a CSS keyframe. So stay tuned for future enhancements for this, where basically this is the first iteration in a conversation with ChatGPT, and then in collaboration with it, we can drill down into basically explaining more details about advanced concepts. So the vast kind of galaxy of CSS is a nice test case for other domains in actual businesses where a user might want to drill down into a knowledge base and get more information, right? So I think in future iterations of this, we're going to see basically another Blazor component generated for the explanation, similar to the Blazor components we're generating here, right? So stay tuned for that. Now let's go ahead and look at how I'm setting up the ChatGPT key. So as you can see here, I have a clear key button appearing. Well, that means that I have a key already installed here, and I want to clear it. So let's go ahead and clear that key. Now I'm going to pause my video for a second. Okay, well, I paused the video to grab my key, and I'll now paste it back in here. As you see, it's masked, so you can't see what it is. And I'll submit that. And okay, so now I've got my clear key in here. I get a little alert saying success. And that's how basically you add your ChatGPT to this component at runtime. So it's never on your hard disk. It's never on, I should say, it's never in your solution anywhere. It's saved to browser local storage, only on your machine. This component itself is running in the IDE. So it's pretty safe, right? You're gonna basically, each developer, if they have a ChatGPT key, can simply add it here, and it only works on a machine. I think that's pretty clear and pretty safe. All right, so the last thing to look at is, well, how did I implement this? Let's go ahead and look at the implementation real quick. And let's go ahead and outlining collapsed definitions. And really the only thing we need to look at, the rest is simply, scaffolding to set up the UI. So we have our clear ChatGPT key, save ChatGPT key, load ChatGPT key, on ChatGPT change. These are all basically boilerplate scaffolding, if you will. So the one that really matters is explain CSS. Let's have a look at that. So basically, it's pretty simple. I don't need an API controller. I just need the API client, which I instantiate here, right, with a ChatGPT key, which we just talked about. Here's my prompt. Analyze each CSS class and its constituent elements and describe in detail the role it plays in rendering the UI. Be specific and thorough. Here is the Razor component. So that source code that you saw generated in the one tab, here is that code right here in this variable. I indicate which ChatGPT client I want, which is GTP4. GTP Turbo 3.5 is too stupid. It comes back with some very, minimal explanations. It's not helpful. It's fast, but not helpful. ChatGPT 4, as you just saw, takes 30 to 45 seconds to come back, but it comes back with some useful information. All right, and then basically I just have some rudimentary status messages here which is not great because there's no streaming status coming back from the GTP4 chat interface that I know of. If anyone knows different, please let me know. But at the moment, the status messages are pretty primitive, you might say. Okay, but then basically that's it. What's going on here? I am right here. Here's the magic right here. Waiting for chat completion. And then once that is done, we're simply outputting that into code explanation, which is the variable that populates that explanation text area in the UI that you just saw. And that's it. So I think the takeaway here is this is not hard. The interface has been made very easy. What is the interface exactly? I believe it is OpenAI. I'm just using the OpenAI NuGet package. There's the OpenAI chat namespace. Down here in the code, I have an OpenAI client. And that's it. So very few moving pieces. I don't need an API controller. I don't need any of that stuff. This is a Blazor WebAssembly component. All right, I think that pretty much is it for this installment. Thanks for watching. One final note, you can find this source code in my repository on GitHub. It's named rebel.alliance.componentpen. And if anyone out there needs help writing Blazor components for their own websites, give me a call. You can find my information at allied-data.com, and under the Contact Us page, you can contact me on LinkedIn. Thank you. See you next time.